Hello, everybody. Thank you to CommerceNext for having me today. Really excited to talk about the wide world of retargeting. We at AdRoll have a huge legacy of retargeting. So, really excited to talk with you all today about a bunch of different strategies and some upcoming changes that you need to be aware of. So, to just get started today, we're going to talk about the past, present, and future of retargeting. Retargeting can be an incredibly powerful tool for creating a personalized experience for your customers as they work their way down the funnel. However, there are some changes coming to retargeting that you should be aware of as a marketer so you can prepare well ahead of time and actually enhance your retargeting strategy. Today, we're going to talk about the current state of retargeting, some general best practices, how Google's upcoming privacy plans are going to affect retargeting as we know it now, and what you as a marketer can do to prepare now for that change. So let's get started. First off, let's start with some basics about current retargeting methods and how you can use them to enhance your customer journey. Let's talk about retargeting as it exists today. If you're watching this session, chances are good that you're already very well aware of what retargeting is. And that's a method of advertising that uses your site visitors' previous behaviors to serve them personalized ads that encourage them to come back to your site and hopefully, fingers crossed, make a purchase or convert. There are actually two different forms of retargeting. The first is pixel based, and this relies on first party data or browser data, known as third party cookies, to track digital users' browsing behaviors across your site. And that includes what pages they visit, how long they spend on particular pages, and so on. So if a user's behavior matches a particular condition that you've established, for example, a site visitor added items to their cart, but they didn't wind up checking out, your marketing platform can add them to a designated retargeting list and then retarget them and send them ads based on those products or based on your brand from there. You also have list-based retargeting. So this relies purely on first-party data, data that you've collected in your database and contacts from your connected site. So once you upload this contacts list with your email addresses and the information that you've collected, you can then create a list, and that list will then be used to retarget customers. List-based targeting relies solely on information that you're collecting naturally. It's going to be a little bit more work on your end. You have to collect that data, you have to organize it, as opposed to pixel-based that can use first-party data as well as third-party. And retargeting ads can run across just about any marketing channel that you can think of, and that includes web, email, social media, even mobile. So it's a great way to meet your customers really wherever they are. Because retargeting can create personalized messages across so many different platforms, it can be huge for both building relationships with prospective customers and then driving them to convert, as well as really garnering that loyalty with your existing customer base. So retargeting ads can drive a bunch of different actions across this user journey from the top of funnel all the way down to the bottom. This includes things like driving brand awareness, boosting conversions, recovering abandoned carts, and even increasing LTV of existing customers. It's all about giving those really personalized messages that make customers feel like they are individuals instead of being targeted as this big group. So now that we've talked about retargeting and how it exists right now, let's talk about some upcoming changes that are coming down the pipe for retargeting and what that means for the retargeting world. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you're probably aware that Google's announcement that they are deprecating all use of third party cookies for their advertising in 2024. And this is beginning with 1% of users in Q1 of next year. So, sometime early in 2024. So, why is this happening? Well, internet companies have started to take note in their users' desires for further privacy. And ultimately, these internet companies, including AdRoll, agree with them. So, major internet browsers like Safari, which is owned by Apple, and Firefox, which is owned by Mozilla, they've actually already deprecated the use of these cookies in their advertising. But the reason that Google is a really big deal is because Google is set to account for nearly 30% of online advertising revenue in 2023. So that means that the impact of Google making this change is going to be a lot farther reaching than those changes that Safari or Firefox has already made. So you're probably wondering, Google's an advertiser, they want to make money, and then they're getting rid of this huge way of driving revenue. So how are they going to make up for that? What's replacing third-party cookie usage? So what's going to replace this current cookie method of retargeting is known as the Protected Audience API. So, pending its success on that 1% of users that Google is going to launch at the beginning of next year, Google will then roll out this plan in its entirety to all of Chrome users by the end of 24. So, this proposal was created in collaboration with the World Wide Web Consortium, known as W3C, and that's an internet standards organization that consists of many industry players, including AdRoll, including some of our competitors like Criteo, pretty much any online internet advertising company or internet dominant company that you can think of has been part of this group to ensure that the changes that are being made take into account different usability among these advertising platforms, take into account users' privacy, and also take into account the brands, such as yourselves, who are trying to use these platforms for advertising. So it's been a really collaborative effort among Google and the industry at large. You're probably wondering, okay, so we're getting rid of third-party cookies. What does that mean for retargeting? Is retargeting just going away? And the answer is no, it's not going away, but it is changing. So, despite disclosures that currently exist that let internet users know that they're being tracked and that their information is being collected, it's pretty tough for the average internet user to figure out and understand exactly how much of their information is being collected by advertisers. So, to remedy this, Google's deprecation is going to result in two major changes for the privacy of its users. The first is that it's going to end collection of all user data that internet users do not willingly and knowingly put into a website. So that's currently third-party data, those third-party cookies. It's also going to give all Chrome users the option to opt out of being served retargeting ads at all. So that means that you'll no longer be tracked as an internet user. You're not going to be getting these personalized ads, which is great if you're really valuing your privacy. On the flip side, as an internet user, that means that the ads you're being served probably won't be as relevant to you. So it's a double-edged sword. But on the other hand, what does this mean for the advertisers? What does this mean for all of us? So that pixel-based form of retargeting that I mentioned earlier, that's going to be relying now solely on that first-party data. You're not going to be able to use those third-party cookies that are tracked from other parts of the internet that aren't your site. But that doesn't mean that you can't retarget at all. You can still be granular about the specific audiences that you're targeting and the way that you're bidding. You're just going to need to rely on your first-party data to do so. So let's talk about what this means for the future of retargeting. And despite deprecation for 1% of users being less than a year away, about 6 or 7 months away, a lot of advertisers are still turning a blind eye. So an Adobe study actually indicated that around 3/4 of marketers are still leaning into rather than away from third-party cookie advertising methods in 2023. And 64% even told researchers that they were going to spend more this year on this type of campaign than less. And hey, that's fine for now. Cookies are still available. It's still a great strategy. It's been around for a long time. There's a reason it's so popular. But obviously, it's not a strategy that can last forever. So let's hit on a few ways that marketers can start preparing for a cookieless future right now before it's here. So the first way would be to explore cookie-free retargeting strategies. So for a while, Google kept pushing back the timeline for when third-party cookie deprecation would begin. But now that there's an official timeline, it's time to start thinking about setting up your business to be able to market and advertise in a more privacy-centric digital landscape. So while we at AdRoll have been known for years, as I was saying, for our third-party cookie retargeting, there's actually a couple different forms of retargeting that don't involve cookies. And the most notable one is called contextual targeting, which we and other advertising platforms offer. So, what is contextual targeting? Well, instead of being able to target using those third-party cookies based on behaviors, advertisers can create campaigns around specific popular search keywords or relevant product and service categories. So then once those parameters are set, these ad tech platforms can then crawl and categorize the content of these different web pages based on the keywords that they include, the phrases that are mentioned, some themes, contextual information, and alternate text. So then whenever a user visits that page, the ad server is going to then match that page's content with relevant ads. So for example, we have here an L.com page that is featuring an Ulta ad. So L.com, for those that are aware of it or read it, very focused on women's health and beauty, etc. So this Ulta ad was placed here because the contextual content of this page makes sense in pairing with the relevancy of a health and beauty ad. So again, maybe people seeing this page haven't visited Ulta.com. Maybe they're not looking for beauty products right now. But using contextual targeting, the assumption is that maybe they're not looking at this right now. Maybe it's not hyper personalized, but it is still relevant to them. So it is a great way to do targeting that's a little less hyper personalized, a little less of that following you around the internet style that third party cookies sometimes can make users feel. So then the second option is to optimize first party data collection. So we've been talking about first party data a lot already. And this is the information that you collect as a business firsthand from your website and your customers. And this could include a broad amount of information, such as the behaviors, actions, and interests of your audience based on their behavior on your website, your own CRM data, subscription data, and that can include things like certain demographic and geographic information, social data from other social platforms, and really just any other sources of information collected from surveys or feedback forms that you may have on your site. And so there are a couple different ways that you can really develop this strong strategy. So the first is you want to determine what you want to use the data for. And I mean, I know you might say, Courtney, I want to use it for retargeting. I want to use it for ads, and that's great. But you need to think about what type of ads are you going to be running? What kind of actions are you trying to get your users to complete? And then what information do you need of theirs in order to be able to target those ads correctly? So if currently your first party data is only collecting names and emails, but you need more information about your customers' interests, maybe consider creating some kind of a feedback form that has that and can collect that information. You also want to identify sources and gaps. So, kind of as I was saying before, think about your actions and think about the information that you're already collecting. If you have a ton, that's great. If you think, I'm not really collecting a ton right now, think about different ways that you can collect that information, or maybe methods for collecting that information that you can enhance. You're also going to want to make sure that when you get this information, you can collect it and properly organize it. There's really nothing more frustrating than having all of this information and not knowing how to deploy it in your advertising strategy. Then there's also, of course, developing a measurement and analytics plan for this information. Again, great if you have the information, but it's important to see, are the strategies that I'm putting in place to collect this information, are they working? Do I need to amp up one area more than another? Am I getting only one type of customer's information? Think through and make sure you're always enhancing the strategy so that you are consistently collecting good information. And then also invest in proper tools. So this kind of gets back to making sure your information is organized and collected properly. There are a bunch of different vendors out there that help you collect this data and ensure that you are employing it in your advertising strategies correctly. And then finally, if you're wondering, how am I going to get my users to give me this information? I have to ask for it upfront. The answer is by building trust. So, according to a recent CoreSite survey, 80% of consumers actually said they'd be willing to hand over their personal information to brands so long as they get value in return. So, think about how you can engage your audiences on a deeper level. What can you give them in return so they know that their information is going to lead them to have a better customer experience? And then finally, think about exploring cookie-free marketing channels. So we've already touched on cookie-free marketing methods, but there are channels out there that do not rely on Google's third-party cookies because Google doesn't own them. So that's most social channels, albeit not YouTube. Google does own YouTube, but things like Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok all have really great targeting strategies and targeting capabilities that by no means are tied to Google's cookie collection. So on the development front, ads providers such as AdRoll are also actively exploring new methods of advertising in tandem with Google's privacy developments and testing. So this is an entirely new frontier of advertising at large. So you might have newer channels and different forms of advertising with retargeting that are coming down the pipe. So keep an eye out for those. You're definitely going to be hearing more about them, especially as deprecation takes full effect. But in the meantime, when you're looking at how to run a good social ad strategy or just a good ad strategy in general on these cookie-free platforms, make sure you're testing different audiences for different channels. Where one audience lives may not be where another one lives. Similarly, run different copy and visual combinations. What resonates with one person in terms of a visual and copy match may not with another, and it may work better on one platform than another. And then also really think about investing in social video. I know we have on here Instagram and TikTok, to really big social video platforms. Social video is really taking off, especially with the advent of more shoppable forms of video. It's a great way to stand out amongst the crowd, stand out from just a sea of static ads. So keep that in mind. So, what have we talked about today? Well, a couple different things. Big key takeaway first is that retargeting is an awesome strategy to apply entirely down your customer journey. You can drive awareness, you can drive engagement, conversions, all with a variety of ad types on a variety of different channels. So it's a great way to meet your customers where they are and make them feel like you see them as an individual. Retargeting is changing for certain, but it's not going away. So Google's third-party cookie plans are going to force marketers to adapt a bit to update the ways that we have been retargeting for so long, but it doesn't mean that you can't retarget at all. It's just going to rely a little bit more on different methods, such as relying on first-party data utilization and on contextual targeting. And then finally, as any good marketer would do, prepare for these enhancements now. Look at cookie-free advertising methods. Prioritize your first-party data collection, which is important no matter what, and test out cookie-free marketing channels so when these changes do go into effect, you feel very prepared. That's really it from me. Thank you so much for listening to this session.